I'm attorney Allan Friedman at the law office Allan Friedman. My firm helps good people gain control of their future when charged with a crime. Today I want to talk to you about two crimes that are kind of like my pet peeve offenses here in Connecticut. One is possession with intent to sell drugs, and the other is operation of a drug factory. Let me tell you why these two offenses are so irritating to me. First of all, let me say that they definitely have their place, right? If you're driving around with a kilo of cocaine in the back of your car, sure, possession with intent to sell, right? Obviously, a kilo of cocaine is more than any one person can consume for their own use. What we're seeing as criminal defense attorneys in the state of Connecticut is, after the legislature, starting back in 2015, started to decriminalize small quantities of drugs. First of all, with marijuana, less than half an ounce, they made it a non-criminal offense. It's an infraction. By the way, never plead guilty to that offense. They give you a ticket you can mail in. Don't do that, because that leaves a permanent record in the Centralized Infraction Bureau. That'll really mess you up. Always contact a criminal defense attorney. We have ways of handling that to avoid that mark on your record that'll show up in job searches, etc. Secondly, for cocaine, heroin, and the like, small quantities, they made it from a felony offense that was very serious to a misdemeanor offense. So the police response to this, certain police officers became very upset. They're still into this war on drugs that President Nixon started 4 years ago. And obviously it's a failed war, right? Because more people are dying of drug overdoses than ever. And it's a terrible opioid crisis we have going on in our society, right? So these police officers are irritated because the legislature has decided that we don't want to put people in jail for possession of a small amount of drugs. So what they decided to do is they tried to stretch the meaning. I'm trying to show stretch the meaning of the statutes, right, to tag people with a drug factory charge or possession with intent to sell charge for the possession of a small amount of drugs. Now, when I think of a drug factory, right, I think about a guy like Walter White in Breaking Bad, right? I don't know if you watched that. It was one of my favorite shows on TV. He's driving around in a recreational vehicle stuffed full of meth manufacturing equipment. Sure, he's operating a drug factory because they're actually, having a factory that produces drugs, right? But somebody in their dorm in Yukon who happens to have a little weed and a scale to measure it and a couple of plastic bags, right? That's not a drug factory. That's also not possession with intent to sell. But unfortunately, the campus police up in Yukon will charge you with possession with intent to sell sometimes. And, that's not a charge that's going to stick. We have defense strategies to prove your innocence of these charges. But unfortunately, being charged with a felony that carries, very high possible sentences when you should be charged with a misdemeanor, a very minor offense, gives the prosecution a lot of leverage on your case. That's why the police are doing it in the first place. And it can be very terrifying for my clients, right? It can be very terrifying. They're driving around with a small amount of drugs on them. Suddenly they're hit with these felony charges. Those charges are really hard to prove, okay? Possession with intent to sell. First of all, they need to prove that you were in possession of the drugs in the first place. It's very hard to prove possession when there's a whole group of people around the drugs, right? Their theory that they use is constructive possession. By the way, never consent to police search of your office, home, or vehicle. They need to have probable cause or a warrant to search, and you have a Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable searches and seizures. So if they've illegally obtained access to the drugs, we can make a motion to suppress the drugs. If you consent to the search, the policeman says, hey, can I search your dorm or can I search your car? And you say yes, then that just, removes our defense to the search. So never consent to police search. Never answer any police questions. If they ask you any questions, just say, I want to speak to a lawyer, or say, I don't want to answer any questions. That's the best answer. Secondly, they need to prove intent. That's very hard to prove when you have such a small quantity of drugs, right? They need to prove that you were intending to distribute drugs based upon the fact that you had a small scale and a couple of plastic bags. Very difficult for them to prove that in a jury case. If you're charged with one of these serious felonies, don't panic. Give us a call. We'll give you a free consultation and go over all the facts, review all the options. There's a lot of ways to solve these type of charges. There's diversionary programs available. We have options to defend these charges. Thank you for watching the video. If you're interested in these type of videos, feel free to subscribe. We're going to be posting more videos on these topics.